Hi, I'm Jagrati from Exchange for Media, and this is TechTalk, where we explore the intersection of technology and advertising. And today we are here with Shreesh Vurutha, the head of product at PhonePe Ads. Hi, welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we are really glad to talk to someone on the product end of things because it's literally the heart of everything that you do. So let's just start the conversation there. What are some of the things that you're doing here that are just so cutting edge that you're really the leaders in the market? Like, what are those things that you could talk to us about?
Actually, there's a couple of things that we're doing, which I suppose are maybe not first to industry, but new to industry. The first one is, I think, in advertising, there's a lot of activity that happens from advertisers where they try and retarget their consumers who they already have, or they try and sort of ensure that they're acquiring truly new users and stuff like that. Historically, I think a lot of the advertising industry has operated off of device identification as the primary way to advertise. I think we at PhonePe have put out, a part of our advertising stack that we call as Avatar. What it really does is that it helps you share like user information securely in a way that we can't read it, which means it's a privacy-first setup that allows advertisers to share that info with us, but we can still use that data in an obfuscated manner to be able to target or retarget consumers for brands, right? This kind of technology doesn't exist too much if you are to actually sit and benchmark against a lot of advertising solutions out in the market. We were one of the first ones to put it out there. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. The other thing that we're trying to do is, I think, there is not really any single advertising solution that plays across a variety of different levers in order to grow themselves, right? We've got products which are sort of old school, proper like media products like display advertising and video advertising. We've got products in the offers ecosystem where we allow brands to be able to give various kinds of discounts, cashbacks, freebies, that kind of stuff to grow themselves. And in all of them, what we do is that we use the power of our data systems to come up with some kind of new age, cutting edge bidding algorithms, so that the advertisers get the ROI that they desire from the platform, right? So these are sort of a couple of initiatives that we're doing which are relatively new. The way we actually think about ourselves is we try and be as full stack a player as possible on advertising, where through and through across all the needs of the advertiser, we've got them covered.
And when it comes to advertisers, what are certain categories of brands that really love to sort of advertise on PhonePe ads?
I mean, I don't want to sort of pick any one particular sector. I think most of them really see a ton of value from us. That said, I think we are also conscious about the fact that certain industries can be custom built for. For example, I think recently we put out a product that we call as Deals, where we are actually, we built a product that is sort of very useful for classical retail and electronics kind of industries, right? Because a lot of it is inventory led, deep discounting, that kind of stuff, right? But most of the products that we put out actually do work across the spectrum of sectors that are there, right? Like we've served, various kinds of retail clients, we've served automotive clients, we've served potentially some kinds of gaming players and stuff like that as well, right? So we've sort of gone across the board. But if I was to sort of, generally speaking, we try and build for the entire segment, but we have customized our offerings often for various kinds of domains.
Could you talk a little bit more about what those customizations look like on a product level?
Yeah. Sure. I think these are more product constructs rather than sort of pushing the envelope of technology. For example, in the deal product that I was taking an example of, these are essentially deep discounted offers that are available for consumers, but obviously these are sort of financially heavy on the pocket of the advertisers. So we brought in constructs of inventorization, bringing in a sneak peek, ensuring that there is some kind of curation that's in place, right? Some kind of intrigue that's building up. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up a lot of the hype for the brands to be able to solve various kinds of use cases. These could be simple sell-through use cases. These could be liquidation use cases, right? Like it's sort of trying to solve a variety of different problems that brands face depending on the kind of sector they're in. Some brands are in perishable goods, some brands are not in perishable goods, some brands are purely digital in nature. So the idea is sort of to come up with these kind of constructs that can sort of span across the segments.
So do you also come across the conversation about ROI and measurement?
Oh, for sure, right?
So I think what does that look like?
No, I mean, see, ROI and ROI, like what in advertising parlance people call as return on advertising spends, is sort of at the heart of all of the advertising products that we build. It's sort of very central to how we build our products. We let our machines do a lot of that goal seeking for the efficiency goals that brands need as much as possible. Much like any other advertising platform, we do see a fair breadth of the returns that various kinds of advertisers experience. We've had situations where certain brands have gotten 15x ROIs on the platform. For certain kinds of sectors where which are sort of hard to push and sell, we've gotten the ROAS all the way up to 5x, 6x, right? And for very, very high ticket sizes, sometimes we've gone all the way up to 2x, 3x as well. So we've got a lot of these brands that are sort of spanning the spectrum. It's hard to sort of pinpoint and sort of give a homogeneous number for everybody, because depending on the product that that brand is selling, the uptick and the repeat buying is sort of different, right? But generally speaking, the ROAS is sort of at the heart of everything that we do. For digital players, that is typically in terms of their acquisition goals. For some of the retail players, it could be in sell-through goals, but that efficiency is at the heart of what we build.
Right. In all of this, are there any conversations where you feel like advertiser wants something, but it might disrupt user experience? So how do you navigate those campaigns? Does that ever happen?
It happens. At the end of the day, the job that we have is finding that balance as product people, right? Like any other solution, we try and look for scenarios where there are win-wins. A good example would be what we recently put out maybe about 6 or 8 odd months back, where we recently put out some kind of a media property where after our payments are completed, we are able to market a lot of brands in after the payment is completed. That's sort of a great win-win, because we are not sort of disturbing the user in the journey of the transaction, while at the same time we are able to get great quality recall for brands, because the consumers have captive attention on the product at that moment when their payment is going through, right? So we find these kind of win-wins. Typically, rule of thumb is that you don't want to advertise in a way that can sort of get customers to just leave the platform. That would be a bad outcome. But we find these kind of subtle win-wins all along the way often.
Okay. And so there are obviously a certain set of clients that you already have, but you are a business, you need to grow.
Yeah.
So you do have a B2B marketing pitch.
Yes.
What does that pitch look like for PhonePe at this point? Because you've been in the industry for so long.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about it. You don't need to introduce it, but there's still like a certain amount of pitching that has to be done.
Oh, for sure, right? See, I mean, it's not just about, let's say, getting new brands to work with us, right? It's also important to keep talking to our existing brands, to be sort of communicating effectively about the new kind of solutions that we are putting out, the new kinds of products that they can give trials on, right? Typically, our B2B marketing strategy is sort of two-pronged. There is the physical top of mind, and there is sort of the mental top of mind, right? The mental top of mind is typically where we talk often enough to our brands. We do a lot of email marketing. We're trying to have some kind of presence where we keep talking about the products that we have from a distance. A lot of it is about what kind of solutions, what kind of capabilities have we brought up, how can they try out the product for these kinds of, for different kinds of objectives, right? But at the same time, we do realize that a lot of the ecosystem is sort of spread out across various parts of the country and are working on various different niches, right? Which is also why we back up that digital effort with a physical on-ground effort, right? Where we are able to actually get coverage across various kinds of media agencies, marketers through a lot of our on-field sales teams, right? The idea is to actually keep ensuring that our solutions are known well enough to brands, and we can sort of convince them to get trials on the platform, and hopefully the platform will talk after that.
Right. So, and also, like when you're creating a campaign, are there ever like some challenges? Has there ever been a case study of sorts that you can probably share some insights from, where there was a challenge where you had to really figure it out on a product level? How do we ensure that this brand would be happy and the users would be happy?
No, I think without taking, let's say, the names of specific brands, I think we've had situations where some brands have expected some stuff out of us, and some brands have sort of maybe been less than happy at times, but that's very rare. Today, one of the things we pride ourselves on is, generally speaking, we have like greater than 80-85% retention rate, right, over a long enough window for advertisers, which is if they spend once on the platform, over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, they spend again, right, which is a really, really powerful metric, right, which means that once we acquire the brand, we're able to retain them consistently, right. That is something that we pride ourselves in. Which means that generally speaking, what you're talking about, right, we're fairly clear if there are any absolute no-nos upfront, right, so that, you know, we can sort of manage expectations well. Otherwise, I can't actually really think of too many scenarios where that friction has really, really panned out, right. If that was the case, our retention rate wouldn't be where it is.
So you don't have fights with clients or internal?
Nah, I don't think so. Well, okay, see, look, do we have debates and discussions? Healthy ones, yes. But at the same time, it is with the interest of the customer at hand, who for us is the advertiser here.
Yeah. Correct. And at the same time, even the users, you cannot mess with.
No, see, that's the one thing that we are relatively good at, which is if we can't find a win-win, we try not to introduce those products, because what that ensures is that we don't put ourselves in a position where we get sort of unnecessarily opportunistic and then sort of can't back ourselves up in front of our customers, which is advertisers again. We try and avoid that. Typically when we build experiences on the product, we try and ensure that they're in a way where the consumers are happy discovering what they can, and the advertisers are happy talking to them over there, right? Like we try and avoid heavy friction in different places.
Does it complicate anywhere because you have payments happening on the platform? Does it complicate anything on the advertiser front?
See, I think it doesn't really complicate it, but there are a couple of interesting challenges that we can face. One is that I think we have had to, over the years, often build a ton of awareness and education with brands about why they should be spending on a platform like us, right? Because there's a ton of user insights that we have just by the sheer volume of payments that we process as a company, right? What that means then is that there is a ton of data power that we have. There's a ton of user experience repeats that we get at users, right? Like we're pretty much a daily use application at this point, right? Which means that you have the touch point that goes to pretty much a ton of users every day, and we know enough about the users to be able to talk to them in a precise way, right? So that is something that I think a lot of our sales and marketing teams in our PhonePe ads business have spent a ton of time trying to build that awareness as well as recall. That took some time, right? Because it's not a natural tendency for anybody to think of payments when they think of advertising, right? So it's taken some time to actually get into that kind of setup. The other thing also is we've had to sort of be sort of very mindful of how do we balance privacy and security as well as the insight, right? Which meant that we had to ensure that our cohorts were not openly available, they were actually secure. We had to ensure that the insight was rich enough still so that you can actually target on top of it, right? So we've had some of those challenges along the way, but I guess I'm also proud to say that we've sort of been able to solve a lot of them meaningfully enough right now, right? To be able to give brands a rich enough plethora of targeting options across a plethora of media and non-media, like classical media properties on the app, right? Which is a good place to be.
Great. Lastly, I think we can wrap up the conversation with looking into the future. Do you think you can even sit right now and predict what 3 to 5 years down the line, what would it look like here? You know, ads on UPI platforms, and if yes, if you could predict it, what would it look like?
No, I'll attempt to be clairvoyant, not a problem. See, I think there's two very large things that will start happening, right? One is, if you look at a lot of the brands that are actually selling their various products and services to consumers today, a lot of the products and services in some senses are custom built for what typically we call as the India audience, right? Which is the top 100, 200 cities in the country. Our belief is, as India sort of gets more and more financially inclusive and the consumption story starts kicking on, the next 500 cities and stuff like that will start coming onto the fold in terms of the consumption story. When that happens, I think that will start forming the bedrock of a lot of the retail economy that we know as we speak today, as well as the digital economy, right? What that entails is that you will have to find growth engines that are outside of the existing pockets that are available to you as a brand, right? And one of the beautiful things about a player like PhonePe ads is that we're sort of very well positioned to not just hit the urban audience, but also the next 500 cities, right? Like we talk about it as the next 500 million users that are coming, right? Oftentimes we are the first internet app, or at the very least the first transactional app for users, right? Which means that we are talking to consumers and have deep insights about them that not a lot of classical advertising solutions have access to, right? So which means that I believe a player like us will start forming the foundation of a lot of the next generation growth engines for a lot of brands, right? Because that kind of access is hard to get, right? Like if you were to go to any other classical media property, it's not like they have that kind of reach available because we're just present with that many like distinct number of people, right? The other thing that I'm very, very excited about is while PhonePe as a brand has coverage with a ton, like hundreds of millions of users at this point in time, we also have a ton of small businesses that accept payment solutions through us at this point in time, right? We are very excited as PhonePe ads at this point in time to see, are there any creative ways in which we can build any kind of advertising solutions, either directly or indirectly, for this set of small brands, right? Because these are in some senses uncatered to as things stand, right? Their growth playbooks are not predictable. They don't even know such a concept exists. They don't know how to optimize for it. They don't have customized solutions for them, right? We believe we are in a unique position to be able to not just serve the top brands on a large set of consumers. We believe we can open up the tap for a lot of the smaller brands as well, right? As things stand today, we have like many tens of millions of what we call as merchants onboarded on us on the merchant network. We're very sort of curious to see how we can build for them, right? And that's a beautiful place to be, because again, these are people who are not getting served very well today, right? Which gives us a unique opportunity to serve these brands and in turn give access to a lot of consumers for various product services that they probably didn't know existed, right? So it's a sort of win-win again.
Right. I'm glad you can predict. Sometimes I wonder if it is even possible, because the way we are rapidly changing world, it's crazy. Like, how do you, like, you're at the heart of everything. How do you see that? How do you see this entire progress? Like, it's so rapid.
See, I think at the heart of a lot of this is the story in which India is progressing at this point in time, right? A lot of the products that we build are sort of at the foundational lens. Like if you look at our, the most sort of popular product we have, which is payments, that is sort of foundational in nature, right? Like you pay for anything and everything, various products, services, pay friends, like it's foundational, right? Which means that we now have the opportunity to know that various cohorts of people, right? Like one of the things we keep talking about is maybe at PhonePe we should stop thinking about consumers in some degree of homogeneity, because you're starting to get to like some kind of population level cohorting at some level, right?
Absolutely.
Which means that the way we think about actually powering a lot of the solutions is to serve the entire mass of businesses and consumers in the country. That has always been our ethos as a group. And our advertising business is in some senses is not very different. Sure, we may actually like sort of pick and choose strategically which ones we go after first, right? But generally speaking, we want to be able to serve the entire plethora of our merchant and consumer network, right? So that's sort of in line with our vision of serving every Indian financially.
Right.
And when we build, I am almost happy to say that it's probably a question of when rather than if at this point in time, because I think we, like you said, we're sort of at the confluence of a lot of the economic activity that's starting to play out, right? Just by virtue of our position in the ecosystem today.
Right.
So we are actually relatively well placed to be able to serve a lot of these customers in unique ways that have not existed in the economy so far.
That sounds ambitious, but I think quite doable.
I mean, like, we are relatively well placed, I think, is something that we have confidence on. And the fact that we have been able to, over the years, acquire a lot of these guys in the context of payments and some other services, we believe that we are in a position to actually attempt it at the very least, right?
Great. That sounds great. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
It was great talking to you.
You too. Thank you.